Good morning, everyone. This is Jen with the Liberty Lion. I want to go over some stuff today that I think is important for us to understand as far as what is the corporate, military, industrial complex and what is actual federal law. Now, everything in the Constitution, if you've been following me and following my videos, you'll understand by now that the Constitution allows the federal government to do certain things on federal lands. So they're not to do things off federal lands unless there's a war and they're moving troops around. So you have private people off federal lands, federal people on federal lands. And in time of peace, it stays that way. In time of war, the militia is moved around off and on the federal lands. And the officers that are federal officers that are normally on federal lands come off the federal lands for the war purposes or the purposes of war. So I wanted to go over the titles from the Office of the Law Revision Council, United States Code, that tells you what is constitutional and what is not constitutional or what is contractual. So in the green, I have the titles with the asterisks next to them that appear to be constitutional, and then the ones in yellow where they appear not to have a positive law citation. And so when they're cited in a different type of court, or so it seems, that's outside the Constitution. And I know it's odd because they have Title II, the Congress, as not being a positive law. So that should be our first indication as to there being some scheming going on, because Title II, you would think, would be positive law because Congress is part of the Constitution. But we have to stop and think for a second here that are they acting outside of the Constitution because they're approving all of these other titles that are not made positive? So non-positive titles, such as Title II Congress, are made up of a bunch of other acts and things. However, all titles are made up of a bunch of acts, but some are made positive and some are not. So there's got to be a definite difference between the two. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is trying to go through the titles and find something recurring throughout the titles that would give us an indication of what is real and what is not real, or what is on or what is off, or why some of these titles have a positive law asterisk next to it, but actually doesn't have a positive law citation inside the title. And I'm going to talk about that. So on the bottom of the web page, if you Google OLRC, you'll come to this web page and you'll come to the asterisk right here. And it says this title has been enacted into positive law. However, any appendix to this title has not been acted as part of the title. Okay, so I'm not going to read the list to you. I'll just go down it and you can view it on your own, and then go to the website and look down the list yourself. So we have banks and banking, commerce and trade, customs and duties. The way that these are handled appear to be outside of the Constitution, including Internal Revenue Code. Now, I was going to do a video on this yesterday when I noticed something. I got down to Title 51 and it says National and Commercial Space Programs. And I thought, surely there's nothing in the Constitution about space programs. I've read it a whole bunch of times and I don't recall ever seeing anything in there about space programs. And I thought, well, war and defense has not been made positive. Why would that be? And I realized because defense is spelled with a C and it comes under Title 10, Armed Forces. So military in the Constitution comes under Title 10, Armed Forces, but there's no constitutional mandate or requirement to create a War and National Defense Department in the Constitution, because the Constitution itself at the seat of government was like the War and National Defense Department, which we know they're not running according to the Constitution anyway. But I come to Title 51, and I'm going to go to the website. And I'm trying to find out why Title 51 has a positive law citation asterisk next to it, showing that it's going to have a positive law. But then when you look in it, it doesn't actually have it. It's not there. So it's in the front matter. The thing about the positive law citation is normally, like for Title I, it's right in the very top. Now I'm going to get something out of this for you. I'm going to show you something that I haven't showed you before. So stick with me on this. Here's an example of a positive law citation. That means that this title has been made positive, and since the title has been made positive, you can cite it as a law. So citing it as a law is 1 U.S.C. section. So one of my favorite sections in Title I is Section 204, because it explains what a positive law citation is. And 1 U.S.C. Section 204 would be how you cite an actual law, because the title has a positive law citation. You can cite acts, but the acts take place on federal lands, and so are supposed to be the titles that are made up of acts. But some titles are not given a positive law citation, and so they're not laws, even though it's maybe filled with laws, acts. The title is not made law. And when you go to court, you see in the court documents, when in the documents of the court, it says this court has jurisdiction over the subject matter or the person because of Title I USC whatever section, or Title V USC whatever section. Okay, so when you go to court, they have to tell you how they have jurisdiction over you or the subject. And that's usually in the very front. So when they say, we have jurisdiction over this matter in accordance with Title V USC Section 2105 or something, then it's saying that it has jurisdiction because that person is an employee of the federal government. And as an employee of the federal government, they come under the federal law. But when it cites something from the Internal Revenue Code, it doesn't cite it the way a law is cited, and that's because there is no law citation for the Internal Revenue Code because it has no positive law. So it'll say jurisdiction over the subject, Title 26 Internal Revenue Code, or the title Internal Revenue Code, or Internal Revenue Code section, but it doesn't cite it as a law, 1 USC or 26 USC section, because it's not a law. Title 26 is not a law. And I've gotten things from the IRS and they don't cite Title 26. They'll just say section such and such. Well, section such and such of what? They won't cite it because they can't cite it because it's not a law. And then if you tell them, well, it's not a positive law citation, they say, well, we don't care. It's because you signed the forms. Okay, so then I got down to, yesterday I was working on a video and I got down to Title 51. And I thought, how is Title 51, how does it have a positive law citation? Well, I noticed the same thing. They did the same thing with Title 23. If you search Title 23, it has no positive law citation, and yet there's a positive law citation asterisk next to Title 23. That's because there is a positive law citation within Title 23, somewhere in one of the acts, but the entire title has not been made a law. So they could do that basically for all of these titles, but they don't. So it's sort of like a little scheme they're running, a little deception they're running here. That's what it appears to be to me. So when you look up Title 51 front matter, there's no positive law citation. It says this title was enacted by public law. Now, the public is the government and what the government has to abide by on the federal lands. So the only positive law citation in this act, it says, let's see, the purpose of this act is to codify certain existing laws related to national and commercial space programs as a positive law title of the United States Code. But you look here and it says 5 USC note PREC 10101. Okay? Hold that in your head for a minute, because it's made positive through Title 5. Title 5 is positive. I'm going to show you what that means. Civil service functions and responsibilities. Civil service are for civil servants who work for the federal government and receive compensation for services from the federal government. Let's go back and see. This says 10101. It's not even in here. 101. And regardless, it's made positive law for the employees of the federal government. Note: conformity with the original intent and the codification of the laws of by this act, the intent is to conform to the understood policy, intent, and purpose of Congress and the original enactments, with such amendments and corrections as will remove ambiguities, contradictions, and other imperfections in accordance with Section 205C1 of House Resolution number 988-93D, Congress, as enacted into law by Public Law 93-554, 2 U.S.C. 285B1. Okay, so I've already told you that Congress has not been enacted into positive law. There's no positive law citation here. It should be right here at the front. And there's not one. That means it's hidden somewhere in there. And so the entire title has not been made positive, and it doesn't apply to every single person on the face of the American continent. It's likely only applicable to the government organization and employees, meaning the people on the federal land working for the federal government, receiving compensation for services directly to the federal government, and possibly its contractors. So, conformity with original intent. In the codification of laws of this act, the intent is to conform to the understood policy, intent, and purpose of Congress in the original enactments, with such amendments and corrections as will remove ambiguities. Well, they didn't do their job because it's still ambiguous. So this code 51 has been made positive for the employees of the federal government working under Title 51, which may include contractors. But it's the contractors as the corporation, not the contractors' employees, unless those employees are receiving money directly from the federal government. And you could say that we all receive money directly from the federal government because we receive fiat currency for our work, for our labor. However, I have a problem with that because in the book 3 Days in January by Bret Baier, he says in here that when the Pentagon was given a mandate for the military to follow, they rejected it and said they weren't going to follow the mandate because it didn't come with any funds. So it was an unfunded mandate. So if it's an unfunded mandate and then Biden or Trump or any of the presidents, for past or present or future, pushes a mandate out onto the public, why can't the public then reject the mandate? Well, obviously they can, because the mandate comes, for one, unfunded, and two, the federal government has no right to mandate the private people, because remember I said the private people are off federal lands. They make up the militia, and that's why they were called privates. Later on, they segregated the militia into age groups. So even though they were privates, they were given different names according to how old they were. And then they kept changing the names, and eventually now we don't even recognize that the militia is made up of private people off federal lands. And that's because the federal officers and employees under Title V had to stay on the military post, and the Congress had to stay at the seat of government unless they were going back to their military post. So some of these titles that have positive law citations, the positive law citations aren't readily found. And when I searched for it, 51 didn't have a positive law citation for the title. It only mentioned positive law a couple times. And here's one time: purpose, conformity with original intent. The purpose of this act is to codify certain existing laws related to national and commercial space programs as a positive law of the United States Code. However, it wasn't given a citation that can be used in courts to show that the court has jurisdiction whenever there's an issue between someone private off the federal lands and someone public on the federal lands, or between two people on the federal lands, or between someone from a post and the seat of government. So it seems to me that the law is made positive. So Title 51 is made positive, but not really, but only for certain purposes as related to the original intent, which appeared to me to be for the employees of the federal government. Because when you look up some of the stuff, it mentions Title V, and Title V is for officers, employees of the federal government. And Title V is made positive in the beginning. So the entire title is made positive, and it has a positive law citation, or a way to cite the law, or a way for courts to know whether or not a law or a title is made a law, because a title has to be made a law to be used by a federal court. If it's not been made a law, it's not cited as a law, and it's used in some other kind of quasi court. So if there's a section in Title 51 or reference to a public law that has been made positive, and that's what they mean by the positive law asterisk, then the only part of Title 51 that's made law is the act that's actually cited and has a positive law citation. So if they put it in the front matter here at the very beginning, if they put the positive law citation here in the front matter at the very beginning, then the entire title is made positive. If they put it here under administrative provisions, then it's only subtitle 3 and below. If they put it here, subtitle 6, earth provisions, then it's only this title and below what comes after. Okay? So a positive law citation put in the very end of the title means that the very end of the title is made positive, but the entire title has not been made positive. So when it has a positive law citation referencing original law, then it must be referencing Title 1 or Title 3, 4, 5, one of these, because these are the earlier laws, these are original laws, and the original law is the Constitution. And these titles, Title 1, 3, 4, and 5, 9, 10, 11, are in compliance with the original law, the Constitution. So then it's saying Title 51 for some purposes, or for one single purpose, which is the Constitution, then really it's only made positive for the people on the federal lands, because the original Constitution, in the way it was meant by the founders, was that the Constitution was for the regulation of the land and naval forces and the militia when called into actual service, and a few other things such as treaties. And that's it. It was for the creation of the military. I plan on doing a video where there's some information that I found that says that the Constitution was and is actually, in reality, an amendment to the Articles of Confederation, specifically Article 1 and Article 8, which do speak of creating a military of the United States in Congress assembled, versus the Articles of Confederation, which is the United States of America in Congress assembled, which has a lot of clarifying facts to be discovered if you understand the ramifications of what that means. And Judge Napolitano's been talking about this for a long time, but the way he says things is more as positing them as questions, which is a Socrates method. Okay, a Socrates method is to get people to think about things by asking them the right questions, or asking them questions in the right way, in a way in which they'll think about things. And having studied hypnosis, I'm sure it's also in many other philosophies that if you ask questions a certain way, that no matter what the person believes, they'll start to wonder and they'll start to take on new beliefs based on the questions you asked, which is really hard to do and impossible if you're just forcing it on someone. So what you do is you try to get them to think about something, and they do it in such a way that causes them or allows them to believe that they've come to this conclusion on their own and it wasn't forced on them. Anytime you try to force things on people, they automatically will reject it most of the time. Some people are very intelligent and very logical and unemotional about things, and they will consider new information. Some people are very emotional and attach their lives and their whole being to their beliefs and cannot come to believe anything other than what they want to believe. So that's my video for today, and so I want to conclude really quick here what I've just told you. So I told you what I was going to tell you. I told you, and now I'm telling you what I told you. An asterisk next to the title means that the title's been made positive. The title has been enacted into positive law. However, there are some titles with asterisks where the positive law citation is not in the front of the title, and so the title has not been made positive, but a certain portion of it has been made positive, or has been made positive for certain people. So Title I, General Provisions, Title 3, 4, 5, and all the other ones here except for highways, appears to me to have been made positive because they conform to the mandates in the Constitution. And as conforming to the mandates of the Constitution, they apply to the federal people, whether officers or employees, whether military or civil servant, to those people on the federal lands, because that's where those people are supposed to be. Now, the federal government has made contracts with people off federal lands to do things off federal lands, to carry some of these federal things off federal lands. They've made the people who work for these institutions, such as Title VI, Domestic Security, they've brought them in under Title V. Well, Title V people are supposed to only work on federal lands. However, they've put them, for example, inside the airports, doing security checks because the government has taken over the airports. They've claimed the right to secure transportation under their authority, even though it's not in the Constitution. And that's how they've done this with most of the what we call the military-industrial complex, is that they've advertised contracts to private corporations and then brought those corporations in under itself. And then anyone that it hires, they insist that they have a contract with their employees to also bring them in under certain titles, such as the Internal Revenue Code, which is not a title, meaning it's not a positive law, which means it's not a requirement unless you sign the paperwork, which makes it a contract. So once you sign a paper, you make it individually positive law for you under voluntary circumstances, because they can't force you, because you're not actually receiving compensation for services directly from the federal government, and that you don't receive a federal check. You receive maybe Federal Reserve notes through your banking institution via direct deposit. Direct deposit is also intended to be only used for people who receive government benefits, such as veterans benefits, Social Security, military pay, etc. So here, the green are all positive law, and the yellow are not positive law, and some of them are questionable. But they're questionable because even though they may not be on federal lands, or they may be on federal lands, they have contractors working for them, but they also have civil servants working for them, and the civil servants come under Title V, government organizations and employees. They also have, I believe, some military people working in some portions of the national and commercial space programs. Okay, so I told you what I was going to tell you. I told you, and then I told you what I told you. And that concludes this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And take a look at the OLRC website if you have time. If not, I've done it for you, and I've composed a lot of information in this short video if you can understand it. If you have any questions, consider posting them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Try to talk to someone new today about the ideas of freedom, liberty, and sovereignty, and ask them if they're aware that the Constitution is an amendment to the Articles of Confederation to create a military state under the authority of the seat of government, which is under the authority of the states, being the United States of America. Ask them if they knew that, and if they don't, try to explain it to them, or ask them some questions, as Socrates or Napolitano might say. I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you have a great day.